Don't mind the dirty desk. I need to organize a little bit better. In this video, I want to talk about the state of horror, kind of the outlook on horror and everything in between. We're going to go over some of the good and the bad of modern day horror and hopefully what the future could be for horror. So horror is a genre that is very interesting because it's very played out in a sense. We've seen a lot from the horror genre, and a lot of the more popular films in horror seem to be directed at being sequels, being remakes, or being almost in a way like revisited films of things that we've seen in the past. You can attribute this to the success of, Halloween, the Halloween franchise. There are so many things that horror does to where it's very sequelized and very much more about trying to reinvent the wheel by already using the published pieces of work people have come to know. We already understand these projects, and so in order for us to get reinvested back into the genre, they almost have to pump out more of that same project, and even from a different lens, as opposed to kind of how it originally came out. And one of the big instances of this is Halloween, right? When John Carpenter made the original Halloween, he never looked at this as being a franchise. He didn't think that this movie was going to have legs. He thought it was, the small amateur film that he made, and he was very proud of it, but he never thought that Michael Myers and the Boogeyman would continue to don screens today, and that 40 years after the fact, we are getting sequels directly linked to the first film. And we've been seeing that a lot, not with just John Carpenter's Halloween, but also we have Scream coming out in January, which again is going to be a continuation of the Scream franchise established by Wes Craven in the late 90s and early 2000s. So this is where we're kind of at with horror, and this is why horror is at a very weird and different place. And so when new horror comes along, in the vein of something like Hereditary, in the vein of something like Get Out, we always feel like these movies really stick out of the bunch and that they're some of the best that modern horror can offer. And I would actually say that that's not necessarily true. I think we get into this type of pattern where we're so used to seeing something that we've already seen played out multiple times in multiple different variations. And so when we see something that's remotely distinct, remotely just a little bit different, to us, we're always going to be factored in and glued in to what that thing actually is. This isn't really towards the general movie-going audience, but this is for film lovers and film buffs specifically. So that's why, to me, horror needs to reinvent itself a little bit more. The trajectory that I would love to see horror take is more of the psychological drama horror as opposed to what we've come to realize. Now, I'm a big fan of slashers. I love slashers. I will eat up slashers at the dinner table every single day. I don't care what time of the year it is. I will watch a slasher movie 9 out of 10 times. But even I can see that horror needs a little bit more of a fresher face. And I still want to see slashers. I still want to have, that fix. But I think horror is better off being more of something that we can kind of personally relate to. And what I mean by that is, like, when you take a movie like Hereditary, okay? Hereditary deals with grief. It deals with depression also in a lot of ways. And by using that grief and that depression, we're able to kind of get coerced into this film and understand these characters. We go along for the ride. We feel their strife. We feel their journey. And we also can really get behind a lot of what they do in this film. That's why when things happen that are very terrifying and supernatural in horror in this film, we can start to really feel even more tense, even more suspense, because we feel for these characters. Another really good example of this is Jennifer Kent's The Babadook. I love this movie. I think this movie is genius. I think it's one of the scariest films I've ever seen, maybe the scariest movie I've ever seen. And the reason why this movie works is because this movie brings you in on someone who is, dealing with depression. They're dealing with loss. And then you also have, her dealing with her son who's young and still learning about the world, but he has his own issues and his own problems and his own social, behavioral, distinct frustrations that make it very hard for her as a character to continue to strive and push forward. And that's what I love about movies like The Babadook, because I can feel what this character feels. I deal with depression in my life. And so seeing it in a movie being played out in this type of way, under the umbrella of it being a horror film, it's terrifying to me, because it actually dives deep into your biggest fears and your biggest insecurities, and it plays on that emotion and brings you even more invested into the story. That's what I love about horror. I love that horror can really take any type of topic, any type of subject, and really develop it and really craft it inside of this unique story structure where not only are we feeling scared, but we're also seeing similarities with our own personal experiences. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about in this video. It was just kind of a brief video just to talk about what I want from horror and kind of the outlook on horror and where I think horror is best suited. But again, I still love my slashers. The slasher genre is my favorite subgenre of horror, but I just love horror movies in general. And I really think that being able to take that approach and lean heavily more into, the psychosis of us, the viewer, that's terrifying. And I want to see that being played more so in films. And that's another reason why I like Jordan Peele and I really appreciate what he's doing, because, he's really able to bring together this experience, of a certain group of people and really just play into that experience and make me reflect on my own personal attitudes. I need to be better as well as a person. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about in this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.